Welcome. In this module, we are looking at a case study of design of a gas absorber and evaluating the economic potential at the various stages of design and generating process alternatives, and once again choosing between these alternatives based on the economics of the process. This is essentially application of the principles of process design, flowsheet synthesis and project economics that we have learnt in the previous modules. The problem at hand is about recovery of acetone from a waste gas stream generated from a process plant. The stream is dilute containing only 10.3 moles per hour of acetone in 687 moles per hour of air. And then in the previous lecture we saw how we started the flowsheet synthesis. The first stage was to decide whether we have to go for a batch or continuous process, but absorber is always a continuous process. So, that was the first decision. The second decision was about choosing the process for the solvent recovery, the solute recovery, acetone recovery. Okay. We saw how we had different alternatives: compression, condensation, absorption, adsorption, membrane, reaction, separation, and then we saw how we made a decision among these alternatives. We saw as how the experience or heuristics from the previous studies helped us in deciding the process alternative for the solvent vapor recovery. The next stage was designing of a simple flow sheet. We saw how we can design a simple absorber followed by a distillation column for recovery of acetone. We chose water as the solvent, which is the cheapest, and then we generated a process alternative of recycling water, and then we saw what were the pros and cons or the merits and demerits of such an alternative. Then we also did material balance for absorber as well as distillation column. Now, in this module we go ahead with the energy balance. Now, let us see the stream temperatures of the process. We are looking at a process where we do not recycle water. Okay. Now, absorber is essentially an isothermal unit. We are looking at very dilute stream of waste gas containing only 10.3 moles per hour of acetone. So, the temperature does not change much. Okay. We are absorbing that acetone in 1943 moles per hour of water. So, the quantity of water is quite high. Therefore, we can reasonably assume that the temperature across absorber is same as that of water that is entering the process, which is 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees centigrade. Okay. Air exits also at the same temperature, and acetone water mixture also exits at the same temperature, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Now, this acetone water mixture is then fed to a distillation column, and previously it is heated. Okay. Now, what should be the temperature of the stream emerging from the heater? As we have seen in previous module as well as we have seen in mass transfer operation, in most of the cases the feed to the distillation column is a saturated liquid stream. Okay. That is the liquid at its bubble point. Now, we have a mixture of 1943 moles of water with only, let us say, 10.2 moles of acetone. So, the bubble point of this particular mixture is going to be very close to the boiling point of water. So, we essentially assume the exit temperature of the stream from the heater to be 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees centigrade. At the distillation column, we are going to recover pure acetone, 99% acetone at the top as distillate. Once again, the quantity of water in it, as we calculated in previous module, was very small, only 0.1 mole water in it, almost 10.2 moles of acetone. So, the dew point of that particular mixture is going to be very close to the condensation temperature of acetone, and therefore, we assume that the acetone that comes out from or that comes out of the condenser of the distillation column is about 135 degrees Fahrenheit or 57 degrees centigrade, which is the condensation temperature of acetone. Now, this acetone has to be cooled before it is sent to further processing. Okay, let us say if it is going to be a product of our process, then we have to store it, and we cannot store acetone at its boiling point. Therefore, we have to cool it further, and therefore, you can see here a second cooler after the condenser, okay, that cools the input stream of 135 degrees Fahrenheit or 57 degrees centigrade to almost room temperature, that is 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees centigrade. Now, for this cooling we use cooling water, okay, as the utility. That cooling water goes in the cooler at 90 degrees Fahrenheit and comes out at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or let us say 32 degrees centigrade and 49 degrees centigrade. Now, these temperatures are going to be different in different seasons. For example, in winter these temperatures could be lower. This is the water that is emerging from the humidification towers, okay, or cooling towers. Therefore, in winter it is likely that the water that is coming out from cooling tower will be at lower temperature, maybe 25 degrees centigrade. However, while designing a particular exchanger, we have to consider the upper bound so that the design does not fail in case of temperatures rising than the design temperatures. The distillation column bottom, we have a reboiler there. Okay. Once again, you see the material balance that was done in previous lecture. Okay. The amount of acetone that is present in the bottom is also very small, okay, hardly 0.05 moles per hour of acetone. So, the bubble point of the mixture in reboiler of distillation column is going to be very close to 100 degrees centigrade or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, that is the boiling point of water. Okay. Now, that part of water is boiled and sent back as the vapor reflux, okay, and part is taken out and sent to the sewer. But before we send it to the effluent treatment plant and later to sewer, we have to cool that particular water. Once again, we have a heat exchanger here, cooler, and that uses cooling water as the utility, going in at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, coming out at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Now, for boiling the water, okay, in the distillation column, we can make use of a low pressure steam, maybe 25 psi steam or 1.5 bar steam, 2 bar steam, which is at about 136 degrees centigrade or 276 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is sufficient to boil the liquid mixture in the reboiler. Okay. So, that is how we can make the balance, or we can determine the stream temperatures of the process. The next stage is to determine the heat load. And that heat load Q can be calculated from a simple relation where Fi is the flow rate either in kg or kg mole, whatever you choose, or kg mole per hour in case of continuous process, kg per hour, okay, flow rate of all components. A flow rate of a component, of a particular component, then Cpi is the heat capacity of that component, and T in minus T out is the temperature difference of the inlet and outlet stream. With this, we can calculate the areas of different heat exchangers of our process using the relation Q is equal to U A delta T. For determining U, the overall heat transfer coefficient, we again make use of heuristics depending on the type of fluid that is inside the tube or inside the shell. Okay, we can have a range of overall heat transfer coefficients available. Well, you can get these from any standard text like Paris Chemical Engineering Handbook or the book of T.Q. Kern process heat transfer, the range of overall heat transfer coefficients for a particular combination of streams. Okay. And then from delta T we can calculate area, and from area you can get the cost, capital cost of the exchanger, and then you can also determine the cost of water that is used for operating that exchanger. In this case, we can have some process alternatives. Instead of using a reboiler, let us say kettle type reboiler, we can feed steam directly to acetone water still. This will increase the heat transfer tremendously, as the steam is directly condensing into the liquid which it is supposed to boil. So, it will eliminate all kinds of resistances. However, the other side of the coin in this case is that the water that will form after condensation of steam gets mixed with the acetone water still, and then it cannot be separated. Now, the water that is used for generating steam, which is also known as boiler fed water, is special type of water which is completely demineralized using ion exchangers in columns treatment. Okay. So, that water is rather expensive. Okay. You cannot afford wastage of that water, it has to be recycled almost to completion. Now, in case you are feeding steam directly to acetone water still, the water condenses in the still and it cannot be separated. So, that is a loss. So, that point we note. Other side of the coin, loss of BFW, boiler fed water, in condensate or in the acetone water still. Now, depending on the number of streams that you have in the process, you can also go for heat integration of the process, but that is a topic that we are going to separately cover. In the present situation, we have a very simple system, so there is no much scope of heat integration. Okay. Now, the next stage of design is the actual design of gas absorber. But before we do that, let us see some other process alternatives. Like in previous lecture, we talked of using of an alternate solvent. Than water. We can use some organic solvent. Let us say we try to use MIBK, that is methyl isobutyl ketone, as alternate solvent. I mentioned to you in previous lecture that while doing the material balance, we have not accounted for the loss of water that occurs through the exiting air. The air that is exiting from absorber is likely to be saturated with water vapor. Therefore, not all of the water that is fed to the absorber comes out of the absorber. There is always some evaporation loss. Now, that loss again can be estimated from vapor liquid equilibrium, like the basic relation phi PTYS equal to gamma S PVS into XS, where S denotes solute, which is presently the acetone, and PT is the total pressure of the system, PV is the vapor pressure, gamma is activity coefficient, X and Y are mole fraction in liquid and gas respectively. Okay. Now, if we are talking of 99% recovery of acetone, then XS is close to be 1. Okay. That is the solvent composition of the top tray. Okay. Now, if we use MIBK, then it is essentially a ketone, and therefore, the activity coefficient is likely to be close to 1. Okay. And therefore, what we have is the YS, that is the mole fraction of solvent exiting from or exiting with the exit gas or the air will be YS equal to PV by or PVS by PT. And then the loss of solvent with exiting air is going to be YS into G, where G is the flow rate, molar flow rate of air. Okay. And now, in the present situation, let us say we talk of using MIBK. Now, MIBK has vapor pressure of 0.0237 atmosphere at 77 degrees Fahrenheit. We are talking of operation at atmospheric pressure. So, the MIBK loss will be 0.0237 mole per hour into 0.0237 into 687 mole per hour into 8150 hour per year. Okay. And then the cost of this loss will be the cost of MIBK $35 per mole, okay, into 0.0237 into 687 into 8150. So, that comes out to be something like 4.6 million or $4.4 million. Now, if you compare the loss of solvent with exiting air, which cannot be reduced, it can be reduced only by decreasing the vapor pressure of solvent or reducing the temperature of absorber, which is of course quite expensive. Okay. So, the loss itself is about $4.4 million. We estimated the economic potential of the process in previous lecture as something like $1.4 million if we recover all of the acetone that is exiting. And now, comparison of these two figures would immediately tell you that the use of MIBK as solvent is going to kill the economy of the process, because the solvent loss will be 3 times almost than the cost of the recovered acetone, and therefore, we cannot afford use of MIBK as a solvent for the process. It is a good idea to see the cost of other losses from the process. Like as I mentioned to you in previous lecture, that acetone exits at 3 locations. First is the acetone traces that are left with exiting air, acetone traces that are left with the water that is coming from distillation column, which is then fed to sewer, and then the pollution treatment cost. Okay. So, let us see what are the cost, total costs that are there. First, acetone loss in absorber overhead or with the exiting air. The cost of acetone we assume to be 27 cents per pound, molecular weight 58 pound per mole. Then the amount of acetone in exiting air was 0.0515 mole per hour, and then the number of operating hours per year. So, this comes out to be close to 6,600 or $6,600 per year. Okay. Now, acetone loss in bottoms of distillation column, again we use the same number, 27 cents per pound as cost of acetone into molecular weight, and then we have already determined that amount of acetone that will be present in bottoms will be 0.0515 mole per hour and 8150 hour per year of operation, and this loss also comes out to be about $6,600 per year. Then the third loss is set of solvent water itself. Cost of water is much smaller. We can take a cost of about 75 cents per 1000 gallon, okay, and then the total loss annual will be this much, 1943 mole per hour into 8150 hour per year of operation into the molecular weight 18 pound per mole into, now we have to determine the volume of this water. Now 1 gallon is typically 8.34 pounds, and then this many gallons and the cost of 75 cents per 1000 gallons. So, this loss comes out to be something like $25,600 per year. In addition to this, we have the sewer charges and the pollution treatment cost. So, those are also not going to be much, that those are likely to be of the order of about $6,500 per year. So, that point we note, pollution treatment and sewer charges both are likely to be in the range of $6,500 per year. So, what we can see from this analysis is that all of these figures are much smaller than the cost of acetone that is recovered from the process, which was estimated at about $1.4 million, and therefore, we can go ahead with the design. Okay. So, that is how. Now, having said this, we go for the design of the equipment. Okay. That is the main absorption column. Now, the first step would be to determine the number of plates in the column. Design of gas absorber. and we also need to know the cause and effect relationship of design variables. And opportunities for simplification of unit operations. Now, of course, in addition to this, we have to also determine the areas of heat exchanger that we are going to use. And also the distillation column. Okay. But the principal or major unit of this particular module is design of the gas absorber of this particular unit, and then we start with it. Okay. Now, for a dilute and isothermal system, we can make use of Kremser's equation to determine the number of plates of a distillation column, okay, number of theoretical plates. Kremser's equation can be written as follows. This is you have seen in mass transfer 2. So, we can take it directly, the derivation is covered in the other course. Okay. Now, Y in is the mole fraction of solute in entering gas. Y out is the mole fraction of solute in exiting gas. X in is the mole fraction of solute, that is acetone in the present case, in entering liquid. Liquid entering the actually absorption column, okay, and M is the VLE constant or equilibrium constant. Now, we have already chosen to use pure water as solvent, and that particular choice immediately puts X in equal to 0. Okay. We have also seen recovery of 99% of acetone. So, then we can immediately write Y out by Y in is either less than or equal to 1 minus 0.99 by 1, that is 0.01 or lesser, okay, and the thumb rule of having L by mg equal to 1.4 or L is equal to 1.4 into gamma PV by PT into G. Now, with this information, we will try to design the column. Now, another information that is not available with us right now is the pressure of the column. Okay. We have assumed in our previous calculation that the pressure of the column would be close to atmospheric. However, let us see what consequences the design will have if we change the column pressure. Let us say we increase the column pressure twice. That means, let us say that we make PT as 2 atmosphere. This will reduce the liquid flow rate. By half. Okay. Liquid flow rate will reduce 2 times, okay, by factor of 2. However, L by mg remains to be 1.4, and therefore, the number of plates in the column do not change. That point we note. Okay. The number of plates of absorption column will not change, as L by mg remains to be 1.4. Now, what further consequences column pressure will have? A reduction in L, the liquid flow rate, will reduce the amount of liquid treated by distillation column. So, the load on distillation column will reduce, the feed will be more concentrated, okay. Therefore, you can have a lesser reflux ratio, okay. Feed being more concentrated, lesser reflux ratio would suffice. The vapor flow rate in column will also reduce. And thus the diameter of the column will also go down. Thus, you can see that the operating cost is likely to be reduced significantly if we double the column pressure. However, we have to check the other side of coin. Other side of coin is how we should raise the pressure of operation or the pressure of absorber. If the waste gas stream is already available from the process at sufficiently high pressure, we can go for this option because we do not need additional effort to raise the pressure. Okay. However, if the pressure of the exiting gas, the waste gas, is not much, is let us say only few thousand pascals above atmospheric, then we need a compressor to compress this stream further, and 687 mole per hour is a quite huge volume of gas that is to be compressed. Okay. Therefore, the cost of compressor will be high, and then it will reduce all the merits that are available with that particular option, that is increasing the column pressure. Okay. So, that point we note. If the waste gas stream is not available at high pressure, compressor will be required to raise pressure of absorber, and compressor being an expensive piece of equipment both in terms of capital and operating cost is likely to reduce the incentive for raising the column pressure. Let us see once again the effect of solvent. Okay. If we use MIBK instead of acid, instead of water, we are likely to require much low quantities of MIBK. However, the evaporation loss itself will be so high that it will kill the economy. Okay. So, that point we need to note. Evaporation loss could kill the economy of the process. Now, operating temperature, that is another design variable. Operating temperature will increase gamma, the activity coefficient. That means, for the same extent of absorption, you will need more water. However, L by mg being equal to 1.4, the number of plates will not reduce. So, these are some of the design variables that are associated with the Kremser's equation or the basic like design of absorber. Now, let us try to determine the number of plates of the absorber with Kremser's equation. Our attempt will be to simplify calculation. Can we simplify Kremser's equation so that we can very quickly get an estimate of the number of plates required for a particular recovery. Okay. I will write once again the complete equation. And let us see whether we can simplify this equation with certain assumptions, reasonable assumptions. Okay. Now, let us look at the left hand side of this equation. We have n plus 1 on the left hand side. However, if you see the cost of the column which contains, let us say, between 10 to 20 trays, the cost of column containing 10 trays or 11 trays or 20 trays or 21 trays is not going to be much different. Okay. It will be only difference of only few percent. Therefore, we can approximate n plus 1 as n. Okay. But the basis for this is that the cost similarity. we have already seen that x in is equal to 0. Therefore, the numerator of right hand side will immediately reduce to yes, ln L by mg minus 1 into y in by y out plus 1. Okay. Now, let us see what numbers we have. From thumb rule we have said L by mg equal to 1.4, and by 99% recovery or even higher we have said that y in by y out will be 100 or even more. Okay. Now, if you put these numbers here, then what you get is ln 0.4 into 100 plus 1, which is ln 41. Now, since 1 is much smaller than 40, we can approximate ln L by mg minus 1 by y in by y out plus 1 as ln L by mg minus 1 into y in by y out. We drop this plus 1. Okay. Now, let us see the denominator of right hand side, which is ln L by mg. We know that ln 1 plus epsilon will be approximately equal to epsilon for small epsilon. As epsilon becomes smaller, this becomes valid. Now, we have L by mg equal to 1.4. Okay. So, we can write an equivalent as ln L by mg equal to ln 1 plus epsilon, where epsilon is equal to L by mg minus 1, which is equal to 0.4, and then ln L by mg is approximately equal to 0.4. Now, with these simplifications, we can now write the new Kremser's equation as n is equal to 2.3 log. Now, we are replacing ln by log. So, we have to multiply by 2.3 log of L by mg minus 1 into y in by y out divided by 0.4, and then we can say that n is equal to 2.3 log of 0.4 divided by 0.4 plus log of y in by y out n is equal to, further simplification. So, here we have to multiply by 2.3 by 0.4, that we did not do it. Okay. This is what. Okay. Now, this particular fraction comes out to be minus 2 approximately plus 2.3 by 4, we can take approximately as 6. So, 6 log y in by y out. Okay. And therefore, we have simplified Kremser's equation as n plus 2 is equal to 6 times log y in by y out. Of course, we have made several simplifications in this analysis. Now you may ask me as how this simplification would deviate answer from accuracy. If we determine the number of plates for a certain gas input mole fraction, gas output mole fraction, X in M with all parameters, what will be the difference in number of plates determined by the simplified equation and the complete equation. I will give you some figures. For 99% recovery, if you use the simplified equation, you can very easily calculate the number of plates that for 99% recovery, Y in by Y out will be equal to 100. So, N will be equal to 6 into 2 minus 2, that is 10 plates. For 99.9% recovery, Y in by Y out will be equal to 1000. So, N will be equal to 6 into 3 minus 2, that is 16 trays or 16 plates. Now, if you put the same numbers in complete equation, you will find that for 99% recovery, you will get 10.1 plates. For 99.9% recovery, you will get 16.6 or 17 plates. So, you can see very easily that this whatever simplifications we made in the analysis are not going to affect the accuracy much, or I would say it is not going to affect accuracy at all. Therefore, such kind of simplifications are needed, or we have to go for simplification of design equations so as to design a particular equipment to the point where we can estimate its cost. Okay. Now, in the present situation, the cost of absorber will be determined mainly by the number of plates, because number of plates will determine the height of the absorber. The diameter will be determined by some other factor that we are going to see later in the shortcut design procedure. Okay. So, this is how, like, we have designed a particular, the main actually equipment of the process using a simplified expression. Now, we can use, we can apply same procedure, let us say for distillation column. We have already treated the subject of distillation column separately in another module of design of separation system. So, I am not going to elaborate here much on it. We have several equations for it, for example, the McAp-Thiele diagram or the FUG method or the Smucker's method for determination of the number of plates. Okay. Now, having completed the basic design of the equipment, we shall now see how the rules of thumb are going to affect the economics of the whole process. That will be the topic treated in the next lecture.